Hey, Bolt fam, welcome to another episode of ChargersCast. This episode, I am joined once again. It seems like it has been forever. In fact, it has been forever. We were just talking about it. It's like literally the Patriots game. It has been since we've had Brennan from Chargers District on the pod. So way overdue. We are not going to let it go this long anymore. We're in the off season, so we're not doing them every single week. But that being said, we aren't going to let it go quite this long without Brennan being with us. Andrew couldn't make it. He really wanted to be here with us as well, but he couldn't make it, had scheduling conflicts. So you get myself, Kirk Brewer, your host, and Brennan from Chargers District, and we're going to rock this episode. So buckle up. We just kicked off. We had a couple days of the tampering period just hit, and it was literally just a couple hours ago, 4 o'clock Eastern time. I think it's 8 o'clock Eastern time now. So literally like 4 hours ago that free agency officially has opened up. So let's get into it, folks. Just let's rip the Band-Aid off and let's go. Let's start, Brennan. By the way, how you been doing, man? I love your gear. You're rocking some really, really sweet gear there.
Oh, yeah. Yep. ChargersCast featuring merch. So
I love
got the hat and got the T-shirt.
Yeah, and by the way, we're going to have some new merch hitting here in the off season. Change the logo up a little bit. And so keep your eyes peeled on the store for that as well. Anywhere you see one of these, we did some tweaks so that we aren't potentially infringing on any copyrights, FYI. So we changed the bolt up a little bit. But let's get into it. So here's what we're looking to cover today. Obviously, free agency. Let's start out with our free agents. Previous episode ran down my personal opinion, who we should keep and re-sign, who we should let walk. And so now we've seen a little bit of this, and there's been some developments, some minor, some a little bit bigger than minor, and we'll get into those. And then who's kind of left on that list of who we should sign that maybe we haven't yet. And then we're going to get into who we've signed from other teams and where our remaining areas of need are as we work our way through the kind of second, third wave of free agency and get all squared up and ready to head into the draft next month, which is at the end of April. So without further ado, my friend, I'm going to run down this list of Chargers free agents we've already signed. And any one of these guys is fair game. We can sit and comment, good, bad, ugly, how we feel about it. I don't think there's going to be really anything in there that's we're going to be like, oh, that's a stinker. It's just really what the intent is this guy more of a role player versus, a stud. So the first one actually happened a couple weeks ago, and I was really excited about this one because I love this kid. This kid's a Charger. He grew up a Charger. His dad played for the Chargers, and that was Elijah. We re-signed safety Elijah Molden. He came right in, and he fit right in with us. So we re-signed him to a 3-year, $19 million deal. Really like that signing. And between Alohi and our boy Derwin, I think that's really nice compliment there. And then really to kick things off, and he was my top. He was my top of our free agents who I thought was a must, was Khalil Mack. Everything about Khalil is you keep this guy in your locker room, you keep him as a leader on defense, and he's a leader of men, not to mention he's a beast. And you've heard me say this over and over again, especially when I'm comparing him to like Joey Bosa. And I talked about it the last podcast as well. One of a player's most important characteristics is their ability to play on Sunday. Phillip Rivers, LaDainian Tomlinson, Junior Seau, Rodney Harrison, and the list goes on. All right. Khalil's that guy, man. You know he's playing banged up every week, but he's playing. I mean, how many games has he missed since he's been with us now? Maybe 2?
Yeah.
If that. And Joey's missed 17 or some stupid number since Khalil's been with us. And so Khalil's back in the house for a 1-year deal at $18 million. And I think both sides like that deal because I think Khalil's getting kind of up there where he's more of a season-to-season guy now. Because he was talking when the season was over, he talked retirement. You remember that? He's like, I don't know, I might retire. So at first I was bummed that it was a 1-year deal, but then I kind of get it. You know, he's kind of like, let's do this season by season. So just today we re-signed Denzel. Denzel Perryman was on my list. He's again, locker room guy, leader, experience, just showing the young guys how to be a pro and be a good pro. So we locked him up on a 1-year deal. J.K. Scott, signed him. That was a multi-year deal. I didn't write it down, but I want to say it was like a 3-year deal for J.K. Scott. You got those numbers, Brendan?
I unfortunately don't, but I'm almost positive it was a 3-year deal. He's pretty solid punter, so I think he would, he does his job, and he's been with Dicker for the last 3 seasons, and I saw it perfect. Dicker's had really no issues with placeholders because it's only been J.K. Scott. So why fix stuff that's not broken? And his average is pretty decent. It's not terrible. So that's a good signing, and I understand why it's a multi-year to lock him up as well.
Yeah, well, why wouldn't you lock him up? Because punter is more than just punter. Now, his thing isn't distance; it's hang time, right? Yeah. And touchbacks and that stuff. And so, yeah, if it's not broken, don't try and fix it. And don't go dicking with Dicker, right? Dicker's knocking him through, so you don't mess with that whole thing there. This one was a little interesting, and not interesting from the sense that I got any problems with it whatsoever, but because we did it so early on, and that was Bradley Bozeman. I had Bradley on my keeper list, but not on my keeper list as a starter. I had him as let's make this guy the swing guy. He can play guard, he can play center, but I think we all concurred that our interior offensive line needed major, not minor, major upgrades, at least at 2 of the 3 positions, and I attribute those 2 positions to center and right guard versus left guard. I'm willing to give Zion another shot just because the guy's a beast, and some guys develop a little slower, and so that's I'm attributing to him. But I like Bradley, and I think Bradley has a lot to bring to the table, and so I'm not upset about the signing, and I think it was a pretty fair signing. I don't think we broke the bank or anything, so I'm okay with it. It's just I don't want to see him starter week 1 in Brazil. I do not want to see him under center. I don't want to be the center, all right? And then we re-signed Troy Dye today. Good signing. And a little bit earlier on, right around the JK signing, was Tier Tart, which I found interesting. Tier was one of the guys I was going to let walk versus Puna 4 because I think Puna way outperformed him. Not that Tier didn't contribute and can be a role player, but apparently the Chargers weren't willing to pay Puna. They were willing to let him go see what else he could do. And then they locked up Tier. So those are the ones we've signed so far of our own guys. Feel free to jump in here, Brennan, and kind of let me know, what your thoughts are on these signings of these guys.
Yeah, so I love the Elijah Molden one too. I think him, Alohi, and Derwin, which all will be there for the next couple of years, hard hitters. I really think all 3 of them have really good vision when it comes to the field. So I think, like I said earlier, if it's not broken, why fix it? So that was perfect. I think that was a great signing.
Well, the cool thing, too, about him and Alohi is those guys can play deep and allow Derwin to come up on the line when we play that dime package, which we play quite a bit. So
yeah, and I liked the Tier Tart one. Honestly, I would want to keep both of them. I think Tier Tart was actually a good disruptor. There was a lot of plays last season that he actually did really good on. But Puna was an obvious one, so I don't know what was going on there. But it is what it is. But Tier Tart, I'm not like you said in the beginning. Most of these signings weren't re-signings weren't terrible. The Bozeman one, everybody hated, but if you put in perspective, cheap deal, depth piece, like you said, he can swing each side if we need him to. This is the Harbaugh era. They're going to get depth as much as they can, and I feel like they love team guys. They love guys that are going to just want to be in that locker room, and after that,
who's going to protect his quarterback?
Yeah, after that game, I forgot against who it was against, but maybe the Saints.
Yeah,
but after that play where he
whole new respect, dude.
He became a Jim Harbaugh guy instantly. So they have to put that in perspective with it. So other than that, there wasn't really anything too much I got to highlight. It was pretty obvious ones. Actually, the last one I wanted to this might be a very unpopular opinion because he is a Charger forever, I feel like, because he came back and everything. But Denzel Perriman, I actually wanted him to walk based off the fact is that dude cannot stay healthy. My favorite thing to say is your best ability is availability. There was countless games where we needed him, like probably more than 6 or 7 games where we needed him, and we just got trashed in the run game. And if he was there, that probably wouldn't have happened. I know he's getting older, but I actually would have liked to see him walk and get someone else, try someone else, maybe draft someone who's a good young guy who can stay with us for multiple years. Because why was it a 1-year contract?
It's 1 year, $3.25 million, so it's a pretty good deal. Here's what I would counter you with that. He was drafted a Charger. So now we have a San Diego Charger back on the Chargers again. We'll get into Bosa here in a minute. There's more to Denzel than his availability at this stage in his career, but he's always been hurt because he comes downhill and he's violent, right? And so he's been hurt ever since we brought him into the league. He gets hurt a lot. That's not supposed to be the role for him. Okay. He's supposed to be the complement to Colston and Deion Henley. Last season didn't work out that way because of Colston. So if things work out this season, Denzel's going to be the role player, and you're going to see Colston and Deion as the starters week in and week out. So let's hope that manifests itself. I really want to see what Junior Colston's what he's got. We didn't really get we don't know who he is yet. This last season, we didn't get enough of him.
That's very, very true. I think I'm thinking of the bigger picture with if you want to be a contender, you have to have all your weapons available. Like if you want to be the Eagles of the NFL, the Bills of the NFL, you have to come with them with 120% of health, effort, anything. So if your guys are injured, but I definitely understand.
Everybody's a little injured, though.
Exactly, yeah. But I don't remember, actually, if you mentioned this guy, but I wanted to actually touch on him, too, and then think I'm good on this part of it. But Jalen Reagor.
Reagor was on my list of let him walk.
So Reagor, actually, though, so I would have let him walk, too, personally, but it isn't a... If I just put it in this perspective, I think the Chargers were the number one team of getting people that people thought were bust and making them good. There's countless guys that got big contracts that were either nobodies or were not good that went on and got big contracts and went on our team. So I think that shows what Jim Harbaugh and the coaching staff can do. He made, I know, a bad mistake with that fumble in his first game, but he made a really good catch on the sidelines. He got he got 100 yards for us, so it shows that he can catch the ball.
He was a number one pick. He was a first round draft pick, dude.
Yeah, so I think he can develop to a good player. So I don't hate it at the end of the
all. Yeah, I missed that one. I didn't have that on my list. I had it on my list, but then as I cleaned up my list for the pod, somehow I dropped him. Yeah, he's one of our own guys that we actually just re-signed here. And I'm not upset by that one at all because we do need some depth in the wide receiver room. And there's going to be limited spaces. This is going to be an area. This is going to be a big area of discussion in this podcast today is wide receivers. And so we need to have that discussion here after we finish up our free agents. But yeah, I got no problem. I think the guy's got a ceiling that potentially he could grow into a role player. And so I have no problem putting him in that room and let's get to training camp and, let's see if he can carve out a role for himself. Clearly the kid's got talent.
Yeah, I realize with the new Jim Harbaugh era that they will not play someone if they do not think they're ready. Jim Harbaugh has said this in countless interviews and our post, pre-game, all of the interviews and conferences. And so that shows, like you just said, that shows if they're willing to play him, then it shows that he has skill and he has a higher ceiling than people think. A lot of people take a little bit to get their career going. I know this is a different position and it could mean a lot different, but look at Sam Darnold. Everybody counted him out, and now he's getting to become a star. Same thing as Geno Smith. I know they're quarterbacks, but when you think of it as the overall picture, anybody can just flip the switch. It's happened numerous times with numerous positions. Linebacker Nick Bond, same thing with him, or Zach Bond, Zach Bond, same thing, different position. So what I'm trying to get at is he definitely can develop to a good player, and if it's going to be with anybody, I feel like it could be with the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a good wide receivers coach. We've got an awesome quarterback throwing him the ball. We've got a great head coach. I mean, hell, look what Harbs did with Alex Smith, So absolutely. I got no problem with, these guys bringing in some folks that they can groom to fit the scheme and see what they can contribute. But we do need there's some spots where we need to put some gems, some jewels, some studs. And so there's still work. That's the thing. I get really frustrated when we start hitting this time on social media because all the crybabies come out. And it's like, oh, we didn't sign that big name. And, oh, we didn't sign that big name. And, the sky is falling, the Chicken Littles of the world. And it's like, the NFL is not MLB. Okay. It's not the NBA. You do not win championships in free agency by signing all the big, expensive name players. You build a team. It's the ultimate team sport. We got a lot of work to do, though. We know what our weaknesses are. That's one really good thing that I was talking about last pod is there's no mystery about these Chargers. Okay. The 2024 season, first season under Harbaugh and Ortiz, we know who this team is. We know exactly where their weaknesses are. And if we know where they are, Ortiz and Harbaugh clearly know where they're at. So let's see what they do, to fill these roles. Let's get into folks that haven't been signed yet that were on the list. The guy who's on the top of my list who hasn't been re-signed yet and should be re-signed, Ortiz, if you're watching this thing, just go sign him now. Don't let him out there flopping in the wind, is J.K. Dobbins. Don't jerk around with this kid. This kid hit all on the line this season. He proved between his vision and his running, and he's only going to get stronger because he's still coming back from those injuries. Sign this kid. His attitude alone, he's a Charger. Okay, just the guy's a great locker room guy. Did you ever see this guy not smile and just have a smile on his face and be ecstatic about playing professional football for the Chargers? Sign the kid. You're not going to break the bank with this guy. And by the way, he's going to be an insanely good complement to this guy that we just signed by the name of Najee Harris. So I think those guys will complement each other incredibly well. Just sign him. Asante's still out there. I don't got anything. The whole Asante thing this whole season's been weird. I don't know what's going on. Taylor Heineke, I great signing him as a backup. I heard we were talking to Jameis Winston though.
Yeah. We were.
Jameis is our backup.
Yeah. So as our backup, I would like that. He's a solid backup. He's started in one games. He knows how it is. Former first rounder. So I would like that. Just want to break the bank, but if we could bring back Taylor Heineke, I would rather do that based off the fact is he's already been in our system. We traded for him. Why trade for him in the season and then get rid of him? So he's a reliable back. Reliable quarterback, reliable QB too. So I think that's a good signing. And one thing I wanted to one thing I did want to mention with the Asante Samuel one, personally, I think he's going to walk based off the fact is Dante Jackson and the new cornerback who just got from. Yep. So from the Commanders, So based off those two signings, either we're filling those gaps for, I'm going to name drop one of these guys, Christian Fulton. I know we're going to talk about that later, but it's either filling in the void for him or filling in the void for both or filling in the void for Asante. So only time will tell. I know we already know it's for one of them because based off the fact is we've gotten two cornerbacks.
Two starting quarterbacks.
Yeah, so we'll see from there. So like you said, it's definitely very interesting because it's been if I think of Asante Samuel, I just think of a big question mark. Like, exactly. What is just happening?
It's like, what the hell's been going on all season? Yeah. I don't know if there was a fallout or they just realized he's not the guy for our scheme. I have no idea. This is a mystery. Usually things leak out. There's just nothing here, but it seems like oil and water with the new Chargers regime and Asante. So I would have to think he was out. Now, I would have loved to have seen us re-sign Christian Fulton. He was on my keep list. I'm a little pissed that the Chiefs signed him, and I'll just leave it at that. I think he's a decent guy. However, he did kind of let down on the tail end of the season. He was stronger early on and kind of let down a little bit. So let's hope he just, from now on, he always lets down. Let's hope we just burn him bad. Morgan Fox is on my keeper list. I'm a big fan. When I talk about Morgan Fox, I always bring up Damian Square because they were very similar interior D linemen. They just produced, and they were never big names. They never got signed to the big contracts for the big long period of time. They got signed kind of just before training camp on a 1-year deal. A lot of times it was league minimum, and then all they did was produce. And so I'm like, don't treat Foxy that way. Fox he's a good player and he produces. He gets pressure up the middle and he's not 300 and something pounds. He's just got technique. Sign the guy to a 2 or 3 year deal. He's not going to break your freaking bank. And when was the last time he was injured, by the way? That guy talked about availability. He's always there. So
always there.
I like Foxy. This one pissed me off a little bit. Nick Neiman, Texans signed him to a 3-year deal. Now, that one's going to go under pretty much everybody's radar screen, but it ain't going under our radar screen. That guy was worth every penny the Texans paid him. We should have paid him. So I'm a little bummed he got to walk.
Yeah, so actually, we missed another guy we re-signed, and I will tell you the reason why I'm not mad about the Nick Neiman things, because I think this guy has a little more higher ceiling, and I think he's more of a Jim Harbaugh guy, is Mr. Troy Dye. We just re-signed him. I think he can fill that that spot that we were missing with Nick Neiman, but maybe even a little more. Personally, I think when he did come in, he was a disruptor. He made every snap count. He knew that he wouldn't be in too much. So every time he was on the field, it seems like he was making some sort of play, in my point of view. So I wasn't really too mad about the Nick Neiman one when we re-signed Troy Dye. But at first, I was like, what's going on? Why that's a solid special teams player, but and good depth. But I think Troy Dye is going to be able to fill that void pretty well.
Yeah, if I were going to try and differentiate those two guys, I'd say Neiman's a better special teams player, and he can come in and play linebacker and get some meaningful quality snaps. Dye, I don't know if he's as good of a special teams player, but I think his actual defensive linebacker snaps were better. But this is what we got now. So knowing we kept Dye, you're dead on. Knowing we kept Dye, it's not going to be as big of a deal, but it's one of those under the radars that if you're not really a fan and you don't really watch, these role player guys, you go, oh, Nick Neiman, not that big of a deal. And then, next thing you know, we have a couple, run backs, for touchdowns on special teams next season. And you're like, well, what happened? Did we forget how to coach special teams? No, we actually had a guy that would have filled that hole that's not there anymore. So, and then last but not least on this list here is Tony Jefferson. Tony Jefferson's another one of those guys. I would love to see us re-sign him. He's not going to break the bank. We know he can fill in. He's not a starter anymore, but what we saw from him last season, he can fill in quality snaps, but he's like having a coach on the field. And so I would love to see us re-sign him and just kind of be a player / secondary coach who, by the way, in a pinch, when a guy goes down, he can fill in for a quarter or a game or 2 games throughout the season because people always go down. It's the NFL. So those are my keeper guys who we haven't signed yet. And then you got any comments on those last couple guys?
Yeah, actually, everything you said pretty much is spot on what I would have said. I agree with all of that. Tony Jefferson, I mean, in the preseason, he went crazy. He killed it, and then
he had 3 or 4 picks.
Yeah, and then when he had to fill in towards the end of the season, he was making some pretty good plays. So if we can just have those 4 safeties right there, we will be good in the safety position for years, and that's one less position we're going to have to think about. And like you said, Derwin, I know he's been in the league since 2018, but he's still a little younger, where Tony Jefferson can teach Alohi, he can teach Elijah Molden. He could probably give some insights to Derwin too as well, and vice versa. So I think having another veteran in it as well is also pretty useful, because if I think 2 is better than 1 sometimes, and in this case it would be better to have 2 vets that can teach 2 young guys and kind of take over,
Yeah, well, Tony's been a good safety for years. And so what he's got between his ears is way more valuable, I think, at this stage of his career than necessarily what he brings on the field snap in and snap out.
Yeah.
And, there's something to be said for having those kind of like I go back to the Denzel position. You're not breaking the bank. You got a guy who can come in and get meaningful snaps when they need it, but he shouldn't be the starter. But when you need it, between the years, this guy's going to make up for what he's lost in, a step here or there. And he leads by example day in and day out, coming into practice the way he practices and all of that. So I've been watching football a long time, and I've come to the conclusion that a few of those veteran, long in the tooth, they've seen it all kind of guys are exceptionally valuable. So I'd love to see us sign him for a 1 year, $3.25 million deal like we did Denzel. Not going to break the bank. And you've got a coach literally on the field with your guys. So we'll see how that works out. Guys that are on the walk list, Easton Stick, not hearing anything about him. I like Easton as a person, but he shouldn't be re-signed. Here, Tart was on my walk list, but we re-signed him. Josh Palmer. I was kind of happy about this. Josh Palmer got signed during the tampering period or received a commitment. You can't sign until free agency actually opens, but got a commitment from the Buffalo Bills on a 3-year deal. I'm like, that's awesome. That is awesome. Because for me, we needed to move on. We knew what Josh was. But out of respect for Josh and who he was, is like, that's awesome. He got gobbled up really quick by a team that's going to value him.
Oh, yeah. I think that's perfectly said. I mean, if there's any room that would be a perfect fit, it is the Bills, because they necessarily don't have a stacked wide receiver room where that's just one more weapon for the current MVP. And he can, just like a good amount of quarterbacks, but I think he's going to be familiar with the fact that Justin can make plays anywhere. Same thing with Josh Allen. Josh Allen can make plays anywhere, so I think he's going to be familiar with that. He got paid. I like that. But the only thing I don't like is it is an AFC team, so we will have to play him at certain points. Who knows? But that's how the road goes sometimes. But yeah, I agree with you. I was honestly happy because I wanted to see him walk too. But it's good that he got a good deal.
He's a good dude. He's not one of those guys where you're like, man, you suck. You're a prima donna. He was good. He was soft spoken. He was a team guy. And so I was happy for him. And I think Buffalo's upstate New York, close to the Canadian border. And Josh has Canadian ties, I believe. I think he played ball up in Canada for a while before we got him, and something. I'm pretty certain he's got some Canadian ties too. So there might be some geographical benefits to him being with Buffalo. Semi Fehoko, not hearing anything out of there. I'm a huge fan of semis, but by the same token, if Semi ends up on this roster, he's on this roster 2 weeks before training camp, I think. We need more talent in that room, period. Hayden Hurst, let him walk. Chris Rumpf, let him walk. DJ Chark, let him walk. Eli Apple, let him walk. Marcus May, let him walk. Mustafer, Jalen Rager, we re-signed. And Quarterman. Any of those guys you would disagree with letting them walk?
Most of those I would walk. I agree with the Semi one. I think if we do sign him, it'd be like 2 weeks before training camp. I feel like kind of similar to what happened last time. Yeah. I'm pretty... As how our defense is developing, a lot of those players aren't really needed. We're getting some solid depth players, and especially when the draft is going to come up developing. We have 10 picks, so that there's going to be a lot of holes that we can fix. And if I know some people probably aren't too happy with Mr. Joe right now, however, he's shown last draft that he can draft some good players in the late rounds. So what I'm trying to get at is those players can develop into some of those roles that we can just let those guys walk. So, yeah.
Correct. All right, let's talk about Oh, just a couple miscellaneous things here first. I don't think a lot of people have this on their radar screen. Talked about it last podcast. It should be on your radar screen. We're going to have to take a big dump truck and dump it in front of Rashawn Slater. Yes, we've got over $90 million in cap space. I don't know what it is now after these recent signings, but we gave Khalil 18 of that 90. Okay, so it's a little smaller. But we're going to have to drop off a big dump truck to Rashawn. Rashawn is not getting out of this preseason, this free agency, this off season without getting paid. Okay, he's in that in between fourth and fifth year option. This is when you pay the guy. So just be prepared for that. You know, you guys are all talking about what Joe isn't doing. What you don't know is what Joe is doing. Okay. I'm sure he's not sitting around eating bonbons and watching soap operas all day. I suspect he's on the phone constantly talking to players and their agents. And probably one of the most that he's having conversations with right now is getting Rashawn signed and what that number is going to be. They need to lock him up. So just kind of FYI there, just it might be flying under some people's radar screens. How you feeling about Joey Bosa there, Mr. Brennan?
Yeah, so if people realize...
Are you shocked?
So...
Or are you not shocked?
I am not shocked.
Yeah,
I'm
me
gonna
neither.
sound like a broken
It was time.
record. I'm gonna sound like a broken record, and people are probably gonna know exactly what I'm gonna say right now. But your best ability is availability. The dude was a monster when he played. But the thing is when you talk about Joey Bosa, when I talk to non-Joey Bosa or non-Chargers fans, they always, when I talk about Joey Bosa, the first thing anybody says is, oh, he's always hurt. So he has that reputation. It's good that he's actually going to be reunited with Josh Palmer. So that's pretty cool. He's going to have a buddy there. But it was a time for him to walk. It was a good time with him. He broke some records for us. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler. He made some good plays for us and was a great player. He's like one of those staple Charger players, last San Diego Charger, except Denzel now. But I was sad to see him leave.
Was also a San Diego Charger.
Yeah. A lot of people know Nick Hardwick too. So there's some Chargers there, but it's sad. But at the end of the day, I'm all about trying to win and get a Super Bowl. At this time now, I feel like any Charger fan is. So it was time to try to upgrade. And plus, I think Tui Tuipulotu can take that mantle easily now. So
Tuli's ready. Tuli's absolutely ready. And there's a name out there right now that just got released last few days that don't be shocked if maybe we bring him in, kind of like we did last season with Bud, which, by the way, Bud Dupree's still under contract. So right now our edge rotation is Khalil, Tuli, and Bud. But I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in Zadarius Smith.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah.
Right. And add him to that 4-headed beast. I think that would be a great fit. He knows the scheme already, having been, a long time Raven. So he's available. He's on the street, and I don't think he's going to break the bank. So that was going to, as we get into areas of need, but it kind of flowed from there. Defensive backs. Our roster right now is getting remade in that room. We just signed 2 guys, and the 2 guys under contract wasn't Christian Fulton, wasn't Asante Samuel, is Jasir Taylor and Dean Leonard. And those guys are under contract. So, and then we just signed these 2 guys, which I would say these 2 guys we just signed are starters. And Jasir and Dean Leonard will continue to play backup roles unless something changes. But just just kind of mindful of what's going on in that room right now. It's going to look a lot different next season, unless something changes. But at this point, I don't see Asante coming back, and Fulton signed with the Chiefs. So, a couple other positions of note. This offseason, we've been hearing a little bit about maybe moving Zion Johnson, kicking him into center. You heard any talk about that as well?
Yep, yeah. I actually
That would be
think
an
I've heard.
interesting experiment.
Yep, yeah. Why not try it out? I like the idea. It doesn't hurt to try it. So
Yeah, who knows?
give them one preseason game, maybe a couple drives, maybe one game, one half, just to see how it happens. Those games are just about to see exactly what that's for. So maybe try him with that one preseason game, and if he does great, keep trying the experiment. If it doesn't do great, fine. I'm sure we're going to address that in the draft before and already have a backup plan. So
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe like just a light bulb goes off at that position where, it's something. Who knows? Who knows? But he hasn't fulfilled the potential that I think all of us think he has at this point, and it would appear that includes the Joe Ortiz's and the Jim Harbaughs as well. That they're looking at the guy going, man, he fits everything that should be successful. What can we do to help him be successful? So that's one thing of interest. And then Trey Pipkins is one I brought up last pod as well. I'll put him in the Bozeman category, which is I'm totally cool with Trey being on our roster.
yeah.
Totally cool with him being on a roster. I'm not cool with him being a starter. I was willing to keep an open mind last season when they moved him from right tackle to right guard. He really didn't do much better at right guard. So for me, I would say keep him on the roster. And if you're paying him too much money, redo his contract or let him walk. If you're paying him starter money, don't pay him starter money. But he now, I would say, would be a great swing tackle and swing guard, potentially, or at least swing on the right side, because that's where he's kind of lived, and keep him in a backup role. And, we need to fill, talking of areas of need, we need to fill 2 of the 3 interior lineman roles, both guards and center. 2 of those need to be replaced with studs. If Justin is going to be the Justin we know he's capable of being, they need to shore up the interior of that line. We got no worries on the outside. We need to shore up the interior of that line. 2 of those 3 guys got to be replaced. So that's why I brought up those 2 positions. Zion potentially kicking in to center, and then Trey, Trey should be in a backup role. This is just my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think why not keep them at depth? Why not, if someone gets injured, we know he's at least serviceable, so we can get him in. Like you said, if it's too expensive, let him walk or restructure his contract if he's still under, or get him a new one when the time comes. But we definitely need to address that. I challenge the Charger fans to try to find more times Justin Herbert got sacked on the edge, on the side, than he got sacked right down the middle. If you can find that more, that's impressive, because almost every sack came either right through Bozeman or right through the guards. So we definitely need to address that, whether it's in the draft, like I said earlier, a lot of picks. A lot of these guys too, especially like guards, especially, you can get some studs in the later rounds. Oh, yeah. So I think that can be addressed in the draft, but we definitely need to address that. And if that's not addressed by the first 1 or 2 games, you need to sign someone or trade for someone and address that, because that was a big issue for us. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much
the biggest issue on the roster is the interior offensive line. And I'll just point out for everybody, it's easy, especially right now, to lose sight of this, but I don't, because we've signed some really good players in my decades of watching the Chargers during this period, and that is the cut down period between the draft and training camp and the start of the season. Those cut down periods, you can get some really good gems, and so we're in the infancy stages of remaking the roster for 2025. And yes, we didn't sign the DK Metcalfs and the Devontae Adams and stuff, and nor did we get like the stud center. The one center that was the guy out of Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. He was kind of like the top cream of the crop center. We didn't get him. We weren't. I don't even know if we talked to the guy or not. But I do have faith seeing Joe Ortiz in season 1 do what he did. And by the way, retrospectively, I saw an interview with him a week or two ago. He's like, yeah, at the time I said it was all cool and everything's great. But looking back, no, it was like drinking off a fire hose being a GM for the first time. Right. And so this is his second, and he's coming in already knowing the roster now. So let's let Ortiz cook, man. I got faith. Joe knows what he's doing, but that is an area we should all be acutely paying attention to, because if Justin is going to cook, Justin needs that interior line. And by the way, if Justin's going to cook, Justin's going to have a really good running game, which also depends on that interior line, because those guys, they're not just going straight up the middle. Those guys got to pull to get to the edges. So focus there. If you want to see how this Chargers team is going to be successful and win championships, watch how we build our lines. Just saying. And that goes for the D-line too. Holes to fill. You know what? No, before we do that, let's talk about guys we signed. Because we signed a couple guys. We didn't go make any splashes yet, but we signed a few guys. We signed Dante Jackson, a cornerback from Pittsburgh. Don't know much about this guy, but the guy's been a starter. He's gotten lots of reps.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like this pick. There's a lot of Steelers fans that are divided, but he was 6th overall in picks in 2024. He started with the Panthers and that was the trade with Deontay Johnson and Dante Jackson. That's traded last year. He did decent for him. The thing is this is how I would personally describe it, is if he's a man, he's burnt toast. But when you give him zone, he is a ball hawk, and it's shown because he's had a good amount of picks. And I feel turnovers, that is huge. So
we play a lot of zone. We do play a lot of zone in defense.
Yeah, so that I think that's a solid signing, because if he doesn't do as well as we expect, that's a good depth signing. He's proven to be effective, especially in zone. So it's not a terrible signing.
and by the way, Brendan, I don't know why you didn't slap me when I talked about Jasir Taylor and Dean Leonard. We actually have 2 starting caliber DBs already on the roster that I failed to name. And forgive me, young bucks, that are 2 picks or 4 picks apart in the 5th round of last year's draft. But I think our DB room, total brain fart. I think our DB room might be pretty good at this point.
I think it was a pretty obvious thing, though. I think we were talking about like having the backups, because personally, I think we already know who's gonna be starting based off of last year. So don't blame you there. It was kind of obvious right in front of us. So it's
Cam and Tarheeb Ball, dude. I don't know these other 2 guys. And what do you know about Benjamin St. Juste? He was a starter.
I haven't seen
much.
Walk,
but he was a starter.
I haven't seen much, but all I know is I saw someone posted on my feed for his gradings, and all of them were in the 40s and 50s. And the Commanders were making jokes, being like, "You gave us Michael Davis, so we're giving you these guys for payback." It's all in the comments, which is pretty funny. I think it's hilarious. But with all that being said, good backup. But from what I'm hearing, I don't know too much about him either. But from what I'm hearing and seeing, he's not too good of a starter. So.
Well, what is it that Harbs always says? Competitors welcome, right?
Yep, exactly.
So we've got Jasir. We know who he is. I think he's the back of the backups. I prefer Dean Leonard over him when they're both equally healthy. Now we've got these two guys to add to the mix, which I'm going to assume is filling Asante's chair and Christian Fulton's chair, which I would have liked to have seen Christian back. And then we've got Cam and Tarheeb, and let's let these boys go compete. Cam and Tarheeb competed like crazy as rookies last season. So if I were those two kids, knowing Asante and Christian aren't coming back, I'd be like, I'm the starter. You're going to have to take it from me.
I agree.
So I am sorry, guys, that I totally glossed over you there for a minute. My bad. I am out of my game, dude. I'm like a couple months removed from the season now. And
Me too. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's going to take a little bit to get back into it. All right. Anything else on the? No, that's it. Right?
Well,
we haven't signed anybody else outside. Oh, Najee Harris.
Yeah,
the obvious elephant in the room. This was kind of an interesting signing for me from a couple perspectives. Number one, I think he's a great fit for what Harbs wants to do. He's like the Gus Edwards that we didn't get out of Gus Edwards, right? The guy's not going to break off a 75-yard run, but he is going to smack you and smack you and smack you and smack you all game. He's going to wear you down. And since he's been in the league, right, he was a first-round pick, he's always rushed for 1,000 yards. That's Steady Eddie. And he's gonna smack you. That's what Harbaugh wanted with Gus, and then get your 1-2 punch with a guy like JK, who's got great sight, great jump cuts, and can just boom and then hit you for 70. So, but we haven't signed JK yet. We need to re-sign JK.
Yeah. So there were some people that said this was kind of like a useless signing, but since the 2000s, he's only the 5th or 6th player to rush his first 4 seasons in 1,000 yards, and I don't think people realize how impressive that is, especially for the back he is. That means he's getting about 4 or 5 yards every carry. If he's not breaking those 75-yard touchdowns, those yards per carry must be pretty dang good. And he will run you over. The Chargers just posted a compilation of his stiff arms, and boy, that guy can get out of tackles, and that's what we need. Like you said, though, I really like him, but if we can have that 1-2 punch, it's going to be a top 5 in the NFL. We have a guy who's elusive, who can make decisions while still in the backfield. We have a guy who's proven to get yards that's just going to run you over. And I think that's going to be pretty good. And Najee is a team player. I don't know if people realize, but with all of the injuries he's had, he's not missed one game in Pittsburgh. And you know me, like I just said, I like people being available. So that's impressive. That's what we need. Especially, I love JK, but he was still out for 4 games. So if we got a guy that can stay healthy and kind of take over a little bit there and is reliable, knowing we can get yards, that's a plus.
Yeah, the only thing that was odd to me is, the guy's got the pedigree. He's performed, I think, why was it just a 1-year deal? I don't know. Maybe he only wanted a 1-year deal. Maybe both of them are like, hey, let's feel it out. He got a nice little bag. I want to say it was $8-9 million, something like that for one season. But why don't you, it's not like he's an unproven commodity. Why don't you put him for 2 or 3 and spread some of that money out? And then I think JK proved himself enough for me anyway that he's not going to break the bank. Bring him for 2 or 3, pair these guys up, and let's go rock and roll. Maybe get a guy in the draft, and then we've got Patterson and Vidal, Kamani, and let's kind of roll. But I think it's a great signing. I think it fits. We're really trying to make the Chargers into a physical team a la AFC North. Okay. And the model of that is Baltimore and Pittsburgh. They will just smack you in the mouth all game long until you get tired of it, and then they just beat you at the end. And that's what we're trying to build. And so when you're getting people that come from that culture, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And the only thing I would say with the 1-year contract is, even though he has proven himself, it seems like Joe Ortiz loves that 1-year deal. We've signed a lot of people to 1-year deals. It's last year, this year. Maybe he just loves that 1-year deal to just be like, just in case, as a precautionary thing, because it won't hurt to just re-sign him after. If he truly is a game changer for us, we'll re-sign him. So maybe that's what it is, but I don't know.
Or maybe it's because Joe's a first-time general manager, and he's maybe, I'm just second guessing here, but maybe he's a little tentative committing money long-term. I don't know, but I found that odd as my thing. You got a guy who's pretty proven. It's not uncommon these days where you're eating dead money because a guy didn't work out. So you don't necessarily need it to be,
J.C. Jackson.
We're still eating money on that damn thing, probably. Do a couple seasons. That way, at least you have some stability. To me, 1 year, you don't have that stability. You're each off season, you're like having turnover. Some turnover is good, but you probably, worst case scenario, you probably want to be turning over about a third of your roster every off season, not half or 2/3. So just interesting. I talked about Zadarius Smith being available, which I think would be a really cool addition to get that 4-edge. I loved having that 4-edge rotation last season, and I think it served us really well. There's another guy that became available, and I think he's a perfect fit for us. And while I really liked Scott Matlock, Kyle Juszczyk just became available. I don't know how you don't make that guy a Charger.
He is a Jim Harbaugh guy to the T, and he is a dang good player. He's shown. So
that one, that's a no-brainer to me. You just go, again, he's a fullback. You can pay him $2.5 million, $3 million a year. Go sign the dude and have him come in and do what he does. Just show up and do what you do, which is play fullback, knock people out of the damn hole, and get open 3 or 4 times a season for that touchdown, down in the red zone. And we play fullback. In this scheme, we play fullback. And Matlock did a great job for a guy who is transitioning to that. But if you've got a guy who's a 9-year vet who does that in his sleep, I don't know. Seems like a no-brainer to me. And he's a California guy because he's in Frisco. So he'd be cool coming down the coast, So I wanted to bring him up. Let's get into areas of need. We've already beat the interior O-line to death. Is there anything you think we need to add to that at this point in the pod?
No, I think we covered all of that for sure.
Yeah, we need to bring in some new blood, and don't know where that's coming yet. Obviously, there will be some in the draft, so we need to just relax a little bit and not overthink it. And we'll get future pods as we're heading into the draft here, at least one heading into the draft. And we'll get Andrew in because this is what really gets Andrew excited is kind of this pre-draft stuff. And we'll get Andrew's take, kind of what he's seeing on guys out there that Ortiz may target late round, or who knows, maybe we go earlier. But I think there's some marquee spots that we need to fill that maybe we do focus on earlier. I don't know. Wide receiver, let's just do it. I put it off as long as I can. We need a wide receiver. I think you can claim, I would claim Ladd's a number one. But I would love to have a 1A and a 1B. And I would love to complement what Ladd does with, DK Metcalf was, you want to talk about the opposite of Ladd McConkey, is DK Metcalf. Ladd is smaller in stature, leaner in stature, can cut on a dime. He's like a sports car. And then DK is a tank, but a tank on steroids. I mean, those two, I would like to see them standing together in the huddle. That alone would have been amazing. We didn't get him. He's going to Pittsburgh. Not the end of the world. Obviously didn't get Devontae Adams. There's a few folks still out there though. So give me your take. We've got Amari Cooper. We've got
Cooper Kupp.
What? Pardon me.
Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp has been officially released, is the last I saw, because they couldn't find anybody to trade for him. And then we got Mike Williams and we got Keenan Allen. Cooper Kupp and Keenan Allen intrigue me because those guys can just flat out get open. Now, they're not going to stretch the field, but Ladd actually can stretch the field, and I think Jalen Reagor can stretch the field too. And by the way, let's not forget, we've got Brendan Rice, and I think they're going to give him an opportunity this offseason to show what he's capable of doing. We basically pigeonholed him. We redshirted him this last season. So they think there's something there with him. What are your thoughts, man? If we sign any one of those guys, Amari, Stephon, well, maybe Mike's a maybe because of his injury history. But Keenan or Cooper, I wouldn't be upset. Those guys are very capable. Are they going to dominate? No, but they're very capable.
Yeah, I really like Keenan or Cooper. I think you said that perfect. Whole thing about those two, number one, Cooper doesn't have to leave. Cooper Kupp does not have to leave. He's in the same weather, same stadium, same city, same state, everything. And I think he would complement Ladd McConkey. Personally, I think Cooper Kupp can actually stretch the field pretty well. And he's a Super Bowl champion. That means he has experience. He knows how to win. He's a vet now at this point in his career. He can still play. I think he just had a 1-2 buffer year with that injury and Puka Nacua hopping over him. So if he comes with us and settles down, I think he'd be really good. And Keenan Allen is a no-brainer because he's not going to have to learn too much. And he knows the quarterback already, and they've had a true connection. And I generally think Keenan Allen could be that same Keenan Allen we had before we traded him, based off the fact that he had a rookie QB with no offensive line where he was just chucking it up in the field. So if he has Justin Herbert again, and we get a solid O-line, I think that'd be pretty good. And I think Keenan and Ladd would complement each other pretty well. However, one thing I would like to see us get, maybe in the draft, is a true X. I want, like you DK Metcalf would have been perfect. So a true X that can moss people stretch down the field is a freak of nature. Maybe not even a freak of nature, who's just a solid elite player on the outside. And I would like to see us get that, because I think that would complement Ladd more than anything. Give Ladd those quick little routes where he's able just to catch the ball and go. He's done that really well. He's also really good at getting us reliable catches for first downs. Why use him for everything when we can get a reliable outside X guy to complement each other?
Yeah, and, as I'm listening to you talk, it reminds me we've still got QJ. And I don't know what Q is. He's an anomaly. He's not an X. He's got the physicality to be that, but it's not his game like a Mike Williams was. By the way, Mike Williams, if I'm not mistaken, Mike Williams and Cooper Kupp were in the same draft, and I wanted Cooper Kupp. And I think the Rams got Cooper in the third round, if I'm not mistaken. It was like stupid. He was so talented coming out of college. How about we get Keenan and Cooper Kupp? And then in the draft, we go get this kid Golden out of, was it Texas Longhorns? The kid that just put up like a 4.31 or some shit at the combine.
Yeah.
So there's your X that's stretching the field. Go get that kid in the first round.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be upset if we rolled into the season knowing how Harbs wants to build this team. If we rolled into the season with Ladd, Keenan, Cooper Kupp, QJ, Jalen Reagor, and Brennan Rice, I wouldn't be upset with that room.
I wouldn't either. That would be a really good 3 wide receiver lineup.
Proven.
So I think that would be awesome. But how this is going and how we've already seen this regimen go, that is very much of a long shot.
We'll be lucky if we get one of those two guys.
We'll be really lucky in how this is going, unfortunately. Yeah. But
I don't know, man. After watching this kind of first little wave of free agency, and maybe it's my heart, but my heart's going. The odds are going up that Keenan's coming home.
Yeah, the lack of moves we're making when it comes to that is either we're doomed or Joe has something cooking big, and it seems like he's cooking big because he
got $90 million. He's got $90 million.
That guy is not stupid. He's gonna be able to get us some guys. I think he has some stuff cooking. I've heard some stuff about Mark Andrews and Dallas Goedert, so we'll see about that. Since Evan Engram, once we got rid of Stone Smart and Evan Engram re-signed, that's a telltale sign. We're either going to trade for one of those guys or we're going to get a pretty good tight end. So that in the draft. So that is that's something that I actually suddenly brought up, but that's something to think about there as well.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, because that is the next very important area of need, which is a pass-catching tight end. You saw on my list, I'm like, let Hayden Hurst walk. I was very high on the opportunity to bring him in. Didn't pan out. I'm ready to move on. Will Dissly, we've got him locked down. He is who he is. By the way, I think I didn't verify this statistically, but I believe he had his best statistical receiving season in his career this year with being paired up with Justin, which is incredible because he's still the great run blocker, pass blocker, tight end, and we need that dominant pass-catching tight end. Maybe the Harbaugh brothers can work something out. Or maybe it's Ortiz and DaCosta, but it sounds sexier to say the Harbaugh bros. Maybe they can work something out. I would love to have Mark Andrews as a seasoned veteran that dude's a stud. I'd love to bring him into the fold, but I also don't think we're giving up anything huge for a guy who's been around a long time now. He's getting a little up there, and Ortiz likes his picks. So what's the alternative? Ingram, he didn't re-sign. He signed with the Broncos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he visited the Broncos and he visited us. Then he signed with the Broncos, which means, guess what? You aren't very smart because now Derwin's going to smack the shit out of you 2 games a year. All right. You chose to not be on Derwin's team, so you're going to pay the price. Derwin coming after you, dude. So he's a donkey. He's off the table. The guy in New Orleans re-signed with New Orleans. Gesicki re-signed in Cincy. And I've never been a big fan of Goddard, Dallas Goddard. To me, he's just kind of a, he's not a super sexy pass-catching tight end. He's not Gronk. He's not, Travis Kelce. He's not Antonio Gates. So if we don't get Mark Andrews, then there's what? There's about 3 or 4 really quality tight ends in this draft, with Tyler Warren from Penn being like the marquee stud of studs in that position. So we'll have to continue to monitor this. However, that position is, for me, it's an integral position for the success of this scheme. You have to have that dominant pass catching tight end that can get up the seam and keep that whole defense honest, to complement your running game. So,
yeah, I agree. Pardon me. I like. Personally, for me, I like Dallas Goedert in the fact that we just need weapons. So if we can get him, I'll take it. It's better than what we have currently. Personally, I think that Stone Smart decision was a little weird. I thought he showed a lot of flashes last year where he can only get better. And especially with the lack of weapons we have, why take away? But we'll see. It's going to be very interesting. Like you said in the draft, there's a good amount of tight ends. I do like Colston. I think he knows Jim Harbaugh. He would fit really well. He's got a couple teammates, so you already feel comfortable. Good locker room. Adversity, like good locker room. Team bonding, all of that. So it will just all connect. So, but it's going to be very interesting. There's a lot of questions that only time is going to be able to tell it. So.
Yeah, well, and I think that pretty much sums it up. I mean, we do, at least we were heading in. We needed some DB depth. I think we've kind of filling that out with these 2 new signings, and then not forgetting Cam and Tarheeb. Sorry, guys. And then I do believe we need some depth at linebacker, and so we'll kind of see what takes place there. Hopefully we re-sign Tony Jefferson, and so we just our safety rooms taken care of, by the way, with all guys who were on the roster last season, which isn't a bad thing. So that would take care of safety depth and really allow Ortiz to cook in the draft, fill a couple places of need, and take the best players available. But that's pretty much for this pod. You got any last little nuggets you'd like to add as far as areas of need, players on your radar screen that we haven't talked about that you'd love to see added to the roster? Anything and everything's on the table right now.
Yeah, no, I think we covered everything. Got a good amount of stuff out. The last thing I would just have to say is stay patient, Charger fans. I think there's a lot. There's, like you said, it's still the early stages. It just started the new season today, technically. So there's a lot of changes happening with this team that it's only beginning. So
yeah, and for all you for all you true Chargers fans, I know there's a lot of fair weather ones out there, or maybe just younger ones who are kind of still, I don't know, learning to be a fan. The NFL is a different animal, man. If you're an NBA fan, you're an MLB fan, you cannot take the models that they have in that sport and translate that over to the NFL. I've been watching the NFL for over 40 years now, 45. God, I'm old. And I've watched teams try and do this over the years where they put together a free agency dream team, and on paper you're like, oh, man, these guys are going to kill it. It's not how the NFL works, man. You can't get 22 players, 11 on each side, and then you have injuries where guys are filling in to get that cohesiveness and everybody playing as a unit. NBA, nobody plays as a unit, okay? It's all one-on-one ball. And MLB, each position, and each player hits. It's a very individualized sport, much less team sport, even though it is a team sport, than football. So what I would tell you is, yeah, it's really cool to be able to talk about, hey, we signed this really big name marquee player and that big name marquee player. And the Chargers do that from time to time, but usually they will sign their own marquee player before letting them walk, typically. And so that's why we have the Derwin Jameses and the Justin Herberts, and we had the Phillips and the Tomlinsons and all that for years, and the Gateses and the juniors and stuff. So kick back. Joe's got $90 million to play with. If you don't think he's salivating to play with that money, he is. Okay. But he wants to put together a winning recipe. Remember Harbs when he came in at the beginning and he did that press conference in his nice suit. I don't think I've seen him in a suit ever since that press conference. He didn't say he's coming here to win a Super Bowl. He said he's coming here to win Super Bowls. Okay. And whether we attain that or not, that is the goal. It wasn't a small goal. It was a big goal. And so let's let these guys cook. I know it's not sexy. We didn't get some of those sexy names, but you know what's sexy? Lombardi trophies. We don't have any of them. It sucks. We should have. So kick back. Let's enjoy this. We know they've got money to play with. We're not in cap hell this offseason. And there's more to come. There's more to come. We are sitting here in the middle of March. The draft is at the end of April, 24th through 26th, if I'm not mistaken, right around the tail end there, second to last week in April. So we've got a little bit of time here. We will be back at least with one more episode and cover additional free agent signings, because now we're kind of in that second wave of free agency, and what signings we do have, how that's going to potentially impact as we roll into the draft. And so hope to see you guys back for the next episode. Appreciate you guys joining us for this episode and hanging out with myself and Brennan. Brennan, brother, it's awesome to have you back. It's been way too long.
Way too long.
When are you physically going to be on the West Coast with your move?
Around first week of April, second week of April. Pretty excited.
All right.
Yep, going back to Diego.
So the next time we're doing this, you will be in Diego, more than likely.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we'll probably be back. Well, we might be back a little sooner.
We'll see.
More than likely 3 weeks. We'll probably split the difference between now and the draft. We'll be back for one more pod. That way we kind of capture, who all got signed with us and who's off the table because they got signed with other teams, and then get Andrew in here, hopefully, and start talking 2025 draft. So, Bolt fam, appreciate you guys. Brennan, who's got it better than us?
Nobody,
baby. You gotta love it. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next episode. Bolt up.
Bolt up.
Hi, I'm Kirk Brewer, the creator and host of ChargersCast. I just wanted to say thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of ChargersCast. We really appreciate you engaging with the podcast. When I created ChargersCast, it was intended to be a podcast about everything Los Angeles Chargers from a fan perspective. It's by fans and for fans. So it's for you, and we really appreciate you being here. If you haven't done so already, please go down below, leave a comment, give us some feedback. We really love to hear from you. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe and click the little bell so that you get notifications when new content drops. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to Chargers Cast. And who's got it better than us? Nobody.